I'm Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is Graded for AEW Dynamite, nearly said SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit a grade from A+ to F. Now it's WrestleMania week, which means that Jack has been on NXT What Happened At duty, and that leaves me with AEW. So without any further ado, I guess let's crack on with it. Hit the intro! We kick things off this week with Hangman Page versus Max Caster, with Bowens at ringside. Page gets straight on the offensive after being rapped at. He just stomps a hole in Caster and takes control. It then spills to the floor with Caster getting the short end of the stick. Bowens gets a cheap shot in on Hangman though after he gets distracted, and then Caster is able to take charge. Page won't stay down though. He even almost gets a dead eye on the apron, but another distraction from Bowens allows Caster to trap Page by the arm. Caster comes off the top and gets cut short by Page, and then Bowens slides in this big speaker he's got. Referee obviously sees it, goes to take it out of the ring, but while the referee's distracted, Bowens slides Caster a chain. Even though Caster uses it, Hangman still kicks out. Hangman avoids the mic drop, lines up for the buckshot lariat, deals with Bowens on the outside, nails Caster. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give this one a B-. There were a couple of ropey moments, but overall it was quite an enjoyable match. It was energetic with a lot of key moments, and despite, the constant interference from Bowens, it didn't really feel too much like overkill. Page notches up another win here, and the Acclaimed, while maybe relying on each other too much, seem to be gelling well as a team. Next up we go to an in-ring with Big Tone, and this week it is the Death Triangle. Tony asks them about their title shot next week, but then they're cut off by Chuck, Trent, Orange Cassidy, and Chris Statlander. They show footage of Death Triangle attacking Cassidy last year, and then Pac's like, look, I know why you're here. You're here because you want a shot at the next tag champs. Well, jog on, you're not worthy. Trent's like, no, we're actually just here to give you a heads up. The boys are back in town. Oh, and now we've got an alien. I'm going to give this one a C. It succinctly stoked the fires of a rift between the teams that was caused long ago by the actions of the Triangle themselves. And next up we go to an in-ring promo from the Inner Circle, and I'm just going to level with you, there is no way that I could ever do this promo justice, so please, after you've done watching this video, if you're not going to watch AEW this week, just go and find that promo wherever you can. Jericho says that the Pinnacle beatdown taught them a lot, and he apologizes for the poor decisions of the Inner Circle in the past. He blames MJF for this, and he calls him my jerk-off friend, and he's like, look, I brought him into the Inner Circle because there is potential within him, and I thought we could keep him under our thumb, and eventually we knew he was going to find out and he was going to turn his backs, but we were kind of blindsided by it. He says MJF wants to be a fine wine but just doesn't want to wait, and he criticizes his lack of experience. He accuses him of stealing the scarf gimmick, and he calls him a mark for himself. He says that you used to go backstage after you were out there and you just immediately want to know what the internet thought of you, and then he renames it to being a max for yourself. But there's a lot more where that came from, so I guess I'll just read it out. He runs down Tully as the third stringer of the Four Horsemen. He says that FTR are interchangeable, sort of like the Jonas Brothers. They're good and they make money, but you have no idea what their names are. He's never seen Spears' supposed great upside, and Wardlow apparently has to strip naked to count to 21. He rallies the people to get behind the Inner Circle, and he says on May 5th there will be a blood and guts match. I mean, those were just the cliff notes, but Jesus Christ, A+. This is how you get people on board. Jericho looked like a mad dog, and the crowd lapped up every second, firmly getting on side with the Circle here. We then go to Christian Cage backstage, and he says that last week was the culmination of him having to claw to regain his career, and then Taz pops up and cuts him off. Taz is bigging Christian up, and he's like, we go back a ways, and then he invites him to join Team Taz, and he just won't let Christian get a word in, and he walks off, but Christian Cage clearly looks uncomfortable here. Next up, it's finally here. We've got the Godzilla versus Kong match, Jurassic Express versus Bear Country. There's a bit of confusion to start, with Bear Country getting a little bit done in on the outside, but back in the ring, they take control. There is a bit of an awkward moment with Boulder catching Jungle Boy, up into like a powerbomb position, then his arms are out for Luchasaurus to come with a crossbody. He's clearly going to go and try and carry him, but Luchasaurus just bounces off Jungle Boy. Doesn't really affect Boulder though, he just keeps going, and Bear Country put the pressure on, but then Luchasaurus gets in and cleans house. Then things break down a bit. Bear Country go for that sort of piggyback backpack cannonball type thing they do in the corner, then they set up for their finish, but Luchasaurus sits bolt upright. Jungle Boy then returns and they take Boulder out. Luchasaurus then quickly hits the Mesozoic moonsault, and Godzilla picks up the win. This one everyone gets a C+. I'm going to give this one a C+, but it was almost a B-. Things ramped up toward the end for sure, but initially it just kind of felt a little bit tit for tat, with each team getting a bit of featured time before the finish. Next up we go to QT Marshall, who's with his boys, and he's got a message for Cody. He says that Cody's mantra should be "do the work for me," and then brings up his past as Ted Jr.'s lackey, and then, having to wear face paint because even as Dusty's kid, he knew he would never amount to anything. He then decided he'd go to the indies and surround himself with little guys to make himself feel like a star. Ogogo then runs down his credentials as a UK household name, an elite level boxer, a Subway spokesman, and a friend of Cultaholic. Not really, but could you imagine? That'd be awesome. Marshall then claims the Nightmare Factory as his own, and then Comerato has a bucket of blue paint and the big Nightmare Factory logo on the wall, and he just hurls it over it. I'm going to give this one an A. It was a fantastic promo, and it's about time somebody took those pesky Rhodesers down a peg or two. We then go to an interview on the stage with Tony Schiavone and Sting, but just as Sting's about to speak, he's cut off by Jake the Snake, who's then cut off by Lance Archer. Archer says that the main event should be his spot. He's sick of coming back and doing the work and then going away, and then coming back and doing the work and going away, and it not really going anywhere. Sting actually agrees with him, and he tells Jake, he's like, come on man, you've got to actually help him a lot more than you are at the moment. You've got to really put in some work here. We kept cutting back to the stands throughout this as well, where Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky were kind of laughing off the whole thing. We go to Team Taz backstage, who are about to have a bit of a pep talk, when Ricky Starks is like, no, hang on, first we should congratulate Brian on picking up that win. And Taz is like, look, enough of this. No, it's big deal time. We could have Christian Cage coming on board here. Next up, we go to Darby Allin defending his TNT Championship against JD Drake, and we've got Nemeth, Bononi, and Sting at ringside. Allin uses his speed as best he can in the opening here, but he gets chopped to the floor. And then Nemeth tries to kind of interject and cause a distraction, which leads to Sting coming after him with the baseball bat and driving him to the back. Back in ring, Drake's just using his size to pummel Darby, and then when things spill to the floor, and I love this, grabs Darby, hurls him into the ropes, and when Darby bounces back to the outside, just leathers him with a massive right hand. Allin hits a huge dive, but then back in the ring, Drake hangs him up in the corner and pummels him. He almost even gets the 3. With Darby laid out, Drake then goes for a moonsault, only for Darby to roll out of the way and go to the corner. Now Drake's straight back up, chasing after him. There's a bit of a face-off as the two are trying to jostle for control, and Darby manages to bite Drake's fingers, sending him back, and he hits him with an Avalanche Code Red. Following that, all we got is the coffin drop and the 1, 2, 3. Following the match, HFO jump him on the stage, but then Sting drives him away, the Dark Order arrive, and there's a little bit of a brawl between Tyconti and Bunny, and it's just kind of like a pull apart. Whoa, not yet, later in the show. I'm going to give this one a B-. It was another one that I really warmed to as it went along, but both guys gave so much here. It was such a good performance. As I said, Drake with just some nice innovative things like throwing him into the ring ropes and punching him in the face. I loved that. And then we got Darby just putting him over as such a strong competitor, and he had to dig deep and really fight back to retain that belt. We then go to Chris Jericho backstage, who's about to be interviewed, but then he's jumped by the Pinnacle. They take him to the ring, they beat him down, and then we cut backstage to like the locker room area, and there's a dressing room door that's being kicked in from the inside. It's the inner circle. They've been locked in. They're trapped. They're trying to get out to help Jericho. Now back in the ring, it looks like he's about to be thrown through a table by Wardlow when Mike Tyson's music hits. Pinnacle clear out, with Spears being the only one left in the ring, and Tyson absolutely leathers him. The circle emerges to stand tall as Pinnacle slink off, and then Tyson and Jericho embrace, which kind of buries the hatchet between the two, and they all kind of have a big moment together. I'm going to give this one an A. I think it was actually the dressing room being sealed shut that sealed it for me. It was just so well thought out. They got a big babyface moment to endear them to the fans a little bit more, and as I said, it was just so well executed. We then got a Britt Baker backstage who says that she just wants a title shot. Come on, Tony, give me a title shot. I know, all of this rankings and all of this stuff, but, merch sales, TV ratings, I'm at the top of all that, so if you need me to climb these rankings, I suppose I'll do so and pretend they actually matter. Next up, we go to the Bunny versus Tyconti. We've got HFO at ringside, we've got the Dark Order and -1 at ringside, and we've got Hikaru Shida at ringside, the current AEW Women's Champion. So the fight pretty much continues from earlier. They're just straight on each other, just laying it in. Conti brings the strikes, but then when things spill to the outside, she's hurled into a barricade and Bononi takes the lead. Bononi dominates for a while, but Ty does manage to find an opening, hitting a backbreaker. It's at this point that Matt jumps up on the rope in order to cause a bit of a distraction. Matt didn't think it through. It results in a Ty KO, and then things start to fall apart. Bononi goes for Shida on the outside. She's going for that kendo stick again, but Shida's able to cut her off before she's able to do any real damage with it. This results in a DD Ty and Tyconti picking up the win. I'm going to give this one a C+. It was a nice callback to last week with Bononi again going for that kendo stick, but we also got Ty rectifying that loss. It was a bit haphazard in places, sure, but overall it did manage to sell that, angry fight feel. And finally, it's time for our main event of the evening, which is a trio match pitting Jon Moxley and the Young Bucks against Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. So Omega and Matt start after Callis tries to interject a little bit before he heads up to commentary. Matt tags in Nick, who overcomes Kenny's strength with a bit of speed and hurls him to the floor, and then Anderson gets in. The pace picks up here with the faces hitting a triple dive, but back in ring, Matt is locked down, isolated, and just worked over hard through the break. When we come back, Moxley gets in. He takes every little bit of offense that the heels can throw at him, standing tall throughout it before getting isolated, pinned down, and again, just worked over in the heel corner. He does get to Nick though, and when Nick gets in, he hits this beautiful kind of 2-in-1 stomp into a backstabber. When Matt gets in, he drills Kenny with a DDT, but then he lines up for the super kick before realizing that he can't do it. Kenny's still, his friend. Kenny then slaps him, Matt punches him back, but there's a bit of a breakdown between them, and Matt eats 2 Snapdragon suplexes, and they looked brutal. He's almost V-triggered, but Moxley manages to make the save. He even manages to pile drive Kenny before they hit more bang for your buck, and then there's a bit of a pin save from the heel side. Nick takes out the Good Brothers on the outside, though. They line up for the BTE trigger, but Matt can't hit it. He's just kind of looking at his shoes and feeling a bit sad, and Nick's chastising him. He's like, come on, man, we've got to do this. Moxley's telling him to get it together, and he's like, okay, and then he can't do it again. Moxley, having had enough, tags himself in, shoves Matt back, and then hits 2 paradigm shifts. Mox then turns around straight into stereo super kicks from the Bucks, and then Eddie Kingston, who's emerged to try and help him, gets laid out on the ramp pretty brutally by the Good Brothers. There's a magic killer on Moxley, and then Kenny's body is just dragged on top of him for the 3. Now, the Bucks are clearly conflicted. They didn't really want to have to do that to Moxley. They don't really want to help Kenny. They sort of want him to see sense, and they just want everything to go back to how it was, but they're kind of awkwardly in this situation now, aren't they? They've hit him. The Good Brothers then pick up Moxley and hold him up, and Callis and Kenny are telling them, go on, do it, and they again super kick him. They all embrace, even though the Young Bucks are clearly quite conflicted, and Kenny goes for a 2 sweet, but I think it's Nick just goes, nah, and just kind of refuses it. I'm gonna give this one an A. What a main event. It had pace, it had storytelling, and it leaves so much unanswered. The Bucks still clearly feel for Kenny, but they've kind of poked the bear, as I said, with Moxley and Kingston, and this is just not gonna end very well for them. But in terms of an overall grade for AEW this week, I think I'm gonna have to, simply because of, the promo work being so insane and that main event, it's gonna have to get an A-. The thing that's really stood out to me here was just the attention to detail. We had some great matches, we had some great storytelling, but the attention to detail throughout has been the thing that really adds that extra level of shimmer to it. But Jack will be back for next week's final episode of AEW Graded, and mate, I really hope I didn't do your grading system too much of an injustice this week. But real quick before I go, I just want to make sure that I run everything down, because it is indeed WrestleMania week. We've got Adam streaming NXT again tonight. Both nights of Mania, he'll also be streaming all the usual content, what happened at Graded, WTF, and of course, our predictions are live on the channel now for a big old classic style recorded reactions. Oh, and tonight I'll be on stream at 6 o'clock over at Twitch TV/Cultaholic for Marble Mania. That's right, we're going to be playing marbles on stream for an entire stream. Come along for some eternal glory. Come along to shame everybody else who doesn't win. But either way, I've been Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling. This has been Graded for AEW. As always, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.